Hello and welcome back aboard my narrowboat. This is day 2 of my weekend aboard the boat, except it's not really a weekend because today is Thursday, but it's a notional weekend aboard the boat. And as you join me, it's quite late morning. I've had a bit of a lie-in. Well, why not? It's a weekend aboard the boat, so I've allowed myself the luxury of just staying snug in my duvet until mid-morning. There has been much activity, I've heard, outside, lots of boats coming and going. I am moored near the bottom of Napton Lock Flight, and there was a whole load of boats moored up here by last night, some coming down through the flight, some ready to go up through it, and the Kinos got going at the crack of dawn this morning. But do you know, it's actually quite nice to just lie in bed and hear the sounds of the other boats going by. I had better get myself washed and dressed, and I'm hoping that even though I only ran the engine for an hour yesterday, that there will still be enough, probably not hot by now, but warm water in the tank for me to have a little bit of a rinse in the shower. So I'm going to go and give that a go, and if you hear screams, then clearly there was not. I am rinsed and in clean clothes. I wouldn't say I washed exactly, but definitely rinsed. So that is good. I feel better anyway. This is part 2, as I mentioned, day 2 of my weekend away on the boat. If you missed part 1 and would like to watch that video, I will leave a link to it in the video description below. Right, time quickly to remake the bed into day mode and then have some very late breakfast. Breakfast today will be a cup of tea, a glass of orange, and I think I will have the apple and cinnamon porridge, which I'm not a great fan of, but it does the job. Just mix it up with a bit of milk in a pan. Where's a pan? Oh, there's a pan, that's handy. Right, cup. Let's some water. This glass for my orange juice. Delicious. Well, edible anyway. This is the morning view from the dinette, and as I tucked into my food, the local swan glid by. I'm afraid I have no food for you. I'm so sorry. I wasn't really sorry, but failing to be given food, the swan huffed off with an angry wag of its tail. The sun was already beating down onto my newly cleaned solar panel. It's old and only 120 watts at best, but it was doing a decent job of keeping the battery trickle charged. Over 4 amps is enough to run the fridge anyway. Rather alarmingly, having had a little bit of breakfast and a little bit of procrastination, we are giddily heading almost towards midday already. It's 11:30, so I need to actually knuckle down and do something useful. I've got 2 things I want to do before I start the little journey back to the mooring. I think I want to get into the engine bay and have a look at the immersion heater on the hot water tank. because various people have pointed out something that I'd entirely forgotten. The immersion doesn't work, you see, and various people pointed out in the comments that these things have a little thermal reset switch in the top, which can sometimes pop itself out, and it might be that it does work, but the thermal switch just needs a reset. So I need to get into the engine bay, take the cap off the immersion heater and see if I can see the switch. It's going to be very awkward because it's facing the wrong way in the engine bay, as you'll see. And then the other thing I thought I might have a go at, if I can find the stuff, is you remember there's a big gouge in the hull where a previous owner must have rammed something at a fairly hefty speed. I bought this aluminium epoxy mix stuff that I can fill the hole with, and I thought I might have a go at applying that. And those are my 2 DIY jobs for this morning. Hang on. Right, I don't think I need to move that one. Well, that's the cap of the heater, and it seems to be held on with just a single nut there. It is not terribly accessible, but I'm sure I can get a span around that. Aha! That's the nut. There's the cap. There we go. I will just point out, for the safety conscious, there is no mains electricity on the boat at the moment. I don't have an inverter, so if I'm not plugged into shore mains, there's no mains. So I am fine poking my fingers in there where the wires are. Don't worry. Oh look, it says it's a 1 kilowatt, which I think I'd guessed, and it does say it's fitted with a manual thermal cutout that cuts out at 80 Celsius. Do not reset without determining the reason. Well, the probable reason would be that the heating from the engine was sufficient to cut it out. I'm going to guess if it has cut out. I've still got to actually find that cutout and see if it's triggered. Which means I somehow need to actually see that. I think somewhere I've got a little dentist's mirror, but did I bring it with me? I'm not sure. I think I'm going to have to use my phone. I can't see in there. I'll have to use my phone to take a photo of that. It looks as though the black cover actually has a thermostat to set the immersion heater on, so you can turn that little knob to what temperature you want it to go up to. And then the red cover seems to be the thermal brake, and it's got a label on it saying something like, do not remove this, do not brake seal, factory set. Well, I think I'm going to have to break the seal and see what it's doing under there. I broke the seal, and all it's got under it is the little dial to set what temperature the thing cuts out at, but there is no reset. It says on top of it, reset, but there doesn't seem to be a reset. There's just a dial to set the temperature. Quite clearly the solution is to never use the immersion heater again and pretend it's not there. That's easy, isn't it? The astute viewer will notice that I am making myself a cheese roll again. Cheese, tomato, boiled egg, same as I did yesterday, and pretty much same as I do all the time. Cheese sandwiches for lunch. It's always extra mature cheddar cheese. And I get people in the comments saying, why do you only ever eat cheese sandwiches? You've got to eat something else. Can't be good for you just having cheese sandwiches. For the love of goodness, man. And have something else on your sandwiches. Have some mayonnaise or some mustard and stuff like that. Look, I like cheese. It's one of the few things in life that truly brings me joy. It is my one addiction. I rarely drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I don't have many unhealthy habits apart from being terribly lazy. I like cheese. It brings me pleasure. Lunchtime is something I look forward to. And no, I do not like mayonnaise or mustard or pickle or any of the other things that spoil the taste of the cheese. So look,
I don't have a go at you for not eating cheese sandwiches, so please, let me enjoy my cheese sandwich without saying, cheese sandwiches again? My cholesterol is fine. I've had it checked. It's perfectly fine. I like cheese, and I'm going to keep eating cheese.
The rant continued beyond that point, but I think we'll draw a veil over the rest of it, and it suffices to say that I continued making my delicious cheese roll. And after lunch it was back to a bit of fettling of the boat.
What I want to have a little go at now is putting this epoxy/aluminium putty into that scrape on the side of the boat. And it seems fairly straightforward. It says sand it out to make sure it's free of, make sure it's abraded and something to stick to. Give it a bit of a clean, and then mix up the putty and stick it in. There will always be, because this is actually, you can feel the whole of the metal here has actually been bashed in as by whatever they hit. I don't think I'm going to be able to shape the whole of that. I suppose if I built up enough layers of putty I might. I'm going to start with just filling the obvious scratch. So this scratch, these bits here, just fill them in. And then if I've got enough putty left, I suppose I could build up another layer and try and flatten that out a bit. Let's start with that. So first thing I need to do is abrade it says, with a rough sandpaper. I've actually got my Dremel tool, which I thought might do a bit of abrading. Let's turn the speed down on that thing. Well, I would count that as a coarse abrasion. This is the stuff I'm going to have a go with. Metal fix, fill, seals and repairs, easy to shape and sand, resists water, salt, oil, chemicals, strengthened with aluminium. And as the hull of this boat is aluminium, that sounds about right. Anyway, we'll give it a go. Rather like my recent works on the project boat Twiggy, I note that the instructions on this stuff also use unconventional measuring units, namely, here we go again, 1 golf ball sized amount of putty to 1 pea, as in a garden pea, sized amount of hardener. So it's guesswork basically. Okay, let's give this a go. Bearing in mind it says you only have 4 minutes working time, which is absolutely ludicrous. Is it really 4 minutes? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, apply to the area within 4 minutes of starting to mix. Oh, starting to mix. Oh gosh, you really have got to get on with it, haven't you? Okay, well, let's crowbar this open. Oh yes. You can kind of see it's got bits of metal in it. Right, that wasn't clever. Let's mix it in the top, I suppose. Do I mix it in the top? Right, where was I? Yes, there's only 4 minutes working time on this, and in this heat that is not going to be long at all. However, we want 1 golf ball sized chunk of this. I'm going to use the lid, I think. Is that a golf ball? It's so hard to know, isn't it? That's probably a golf ball. Let's say that's a golf ball sized amount of that. And I don't think I'm going to need huge amounts. Why can't I get the lid back on? There we go, and a pea-sized amount of hardener. How do I even open that? I don't know. Oh, there we go. Does that just break off? Oh, I see. You break it off, then you turn it over and it's a lid. Right. So 1 pea-sized bit of hardener. Look at that squirting out. That's a pea, isn't it? I'm going to say that's a pea. And I've now got 4 minutes. So it's 1 minute to 2. Right, mix like crazy. Well, I think that'll have to do in terms of mixing, if I've really only got 4 minutes. All things considered, I think that went okay. Put a bit more on than I was anticipating, but the instructions say it sets enough to be sanded within 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm going to give it 20 to 30 minutes, have a nice cup of tea, come back, give it a bit of a tentative sand, and then if it all seems okay, I might actually continue, mix up some more, maybe half a golf ball this time, and fill it over, and possibly within the next hour or two I might have been able to put enough on and sand it back enough that I've actually curved out that shape of the hull properly, and then it'll just need a bit of painting with some bitumen blacking, which is purely for cosmetic purposes. But I'm interested to see what that looks like in half an hour when I am sanding it. So for now, cup of tea. It's actually looking pretty good, and it certainly sands very well. I think one more application and sanding might do the trick.
While the putty set again, I returned to my book. This was very pleasant and relaxing.
Well, with that done, and the time now almost 4 o'clock, I need to untie the lines, fire up the engine. We'll do that the other way around again. We'll fire up the engine, untie the lines, and head back home. I've got my regular Thursday evening pub quiz back in Worcestershire to go to, so I need to do an hour or so up the canal that way, park the boat, and then head home. So let's get that engine started.
The entire journey back was only going to be about 2 miles, so it was no problem at all to be going at tick over past these moored boats. That reminds me, stored somewhere in the boat, I have the 2 brand new Morse control cables for the throttle and gearbox, which I've had ready to install for months now. That must go onto my DIY list, and soon. There's the winding hole you turn at if you're coming south and don't want to go through the locks. I'd met some lovely boaters while I was moored, and there they are.
Lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
After the moored boats, I could throttle up to a giddy 3 miles an hour. Actually, probably less. I was only doing 1200 RPM. Round the big curve. You know, they should name these bends like on Formula 1 circuits. Wave goodbye to the windmill. And onwards in the sunshine at a gentle pace. Look, another graceful curve in the canal that's crying out for a racetrack-style name. Suggestions in the comments, please. You can see underneath how this is actually 2 bridges. One, a newer road bridge, appended to the old original canal bridge. Quite a few boats moored here, and no surprise since they have this view of the fields to gaze over. I tried to get this shot in video, but it was too wobbly. But look, the moon and the plane. I was quite pleased with that lucky composition.
You know, there's one thing I don't do often enough when I'm outdoors, whether it's on the boat or the camper van or walking up the Malvern Hills or whatever, and that is just breathing. I mean, actually deep lungfuls of fresh air and smelling it and tasting it and enjoying it. And on a day like today, I take a lungful, I go, gosh, this is fantastic stuff, air. And I know that sounds absurd, but when you get a really good lungful of good, clean country air on a sunny day, it's a thing of splendour, it really is.
The view of a hire boat firm through that bridge meant I was almost back, as the marina is just around the corner from there. That's a splendid name for a boat, especially when the bow is almost swan neck shaped. Well, if you squint a bit. It's worth pointing out that most hire fleets have a variety of boat sizes available, from 2-person to 8 or even more if you're very friendly. It is rare for any to allow solo hiring though, for safety and insurance reasons. As I rounded the bend, there was the first glimpse of the junction at which my marina is based. The marina entrance is on the opposite side. Look, there it is. I checked and there was no one coming out from under the bridge, so I steered into the marina with the crosswind trying quite enthusiastically to blow me off course. I made it without bumps or knocks and steered my way back onto the mooring. That's it for this so-called weekend aboard the boat. I'll be back cruising again very soon, I hope. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.